Welcome back to another episode of the Been There Felt That podcast. Today is not only a very special guest, but our first virtual recording. The guest today for episode 7 is none other than himself, Jaiden Allen. How are you doing, Jaiden?
I'm doing great, Sabin. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing lovely. Thank you for being a part of this journey and this process. I know this is very new to both of us.
Yeah, no, I'm very much looking forward to it, and this is very interesting. Software, everything. Very
Yeah,
eager to go.
yeah. So straight off the bat, like first, Jaiden, can you tell the viewers what it is you do, how it came about, and yeah.
Okay, so what I do is very simple. How it came about is a very long answer. So I'm gonna try and be as to the point as possible. But what I do is I'm a life coach. I introduce myself as a mindset and performance coach, but general term life coach works for the purposes of explaining to most people. And it's not really in the spiritual sense, it's in the very practical sense. So, in terms of people's daily lives, what they're doing on the day to day, their schedules, how they're finding fulfillment in their work, in their lives, in their health, that's what I do. And the reason why I give such a broad explanation of it is because, and you know this yourself, obviously, but my approach is very customized to every single client. It's very much like, what are they working through, and how can I help them work through that? And there's not really a formula to that as much it is finding out where they're struggling and trying to either help them buy time, help them through processes and through tools just to help gain either consistency or productivity or just have a better understanding of where they are and what they're trying to get out of life, really. And it's not really on the level of a therapist, but it is on a personal level, I'd say. How I came to do it, that's also very interesting. Didn't study for this by any means in terms of like a degree. I'm not a psychologist. That's not what life coaches do in general. Honestly, anybody could technically do the work that I do if they were the right person to do it. So my background, my academic background, I started studying a Bachelor of Commerce slash law. So I went and completed that degree, and thereafter had a bit of a gap year stage before coming back and completing my LLB. And then I was a couple months in marketing technically. I did a couple of courses to be an SEO. So I'm sure you know what that means, but for the viewers, I'll
Yes.
just say that it's search engine optimization. It's basically where you rank in Google if Google is the engine that you're optimizing for example. So like if I search Life Coach Cape Town, how high you'd rank for that keyword, Life Coach Cape Town, that would be SEO related, and how great your ranking is. Yeah. So I was in that for a while, and thereafter I started working with a friend of mine who was struggling with consistency in his life. Classic ADHD, can't get anything done, can't be on time type of person. And I just started working with him, putting together systems and helping him track the goals that he was trying to implement into his life. I've got a very productive background, and yeah, I guess that was helpful for him. And then along that journey, I started, and I wasn't even working with him paid per se, like at all, really. I was just like being a friend at that point in time and like having weekly conversations on like what sort of systems we can help put in place in his life just to make things better. And I really enjoyed that work. So soon after, I decided, okay, let's legitimize this. Let's make this into a business. It's not really a business. It's more of like a life coaching practice. But I found a certification that I thought was practical and I thought aligned with me because I'm sure a lot of people know when they think of life coaches, they may think of like spirituality, chakras, meditation, um, what do you call the birth charts things again? Star sign related stuff and horoscopes. Not, I don't do any of that. I'm very much a practical person in terms of what can we do. Emphasis on the action and the doing, and not what we think's not within our control or that is around us and what we believe that is going to happen. Not to say that like affirmations isn't a good thing. It is. It just needs to be used right. So definitely action over hope is my approach.
Well, for the viewers that don't know and don't follow either me or Jaden themselves, I had a few sessions with Jaden under TerraFlow Coaching, which is the life coach practice, and he really did help with those actionable um, pieces and the to-do list and to put time management in. I took a lot from our conversations and the insights. I mean, I think we're both people that do like to serve and have the service. Like you said, with your friend, you were just helping him as a friend, and then you realized you actually enjoyed it, trying to help better other people. Not that you're minded in now, but because you just know a good logistical way of putting things into practice, it's easier to help people that don't know how to do those things. So as a life coach, I mean, wow, I can't fathom the amount of people and clients you must have that come with different problems, and that arises more problems for yourself. I mean, what are some of the most common problems you see in like the younger generation, or people that do need the help?
You'd be this is the strangest one that I've got every like almost every single time is that people don't use their calendars. Like just setting up the coaching sessions, they're like, "What do you mean it's in my calendar?" Because I book via email and then it shows up in your Google Calendar somehow and somehow obviously it's linked, but to a lot of people who don't even use their calendars to track when things are happening. And I have found the case, and I found it to be the case, that with a lot of people who either formally or self-diagnosed with ADHD, they just say that they remember an event, and then when it's supposed to come up, they know that it's the date, and then they go to the thing, which at least I found in my life to be very not helpful because I forget a lot of stuff. And hey, if there's enough going on, if you're busy enough, you're not gonna remember what you're supposed to do 2 weeks from now until you see it in the calendar, because you're gonna be focused on something that you're doing in the moment. And yeah, life obviously happens. There's unpredictable things that occur along the way that throw you off track, and it's very, very, very useful just to know, roughly at least, what's going on. So, uh, my calendar approach isn't like wake up at this time and, do this morning routine and be at the gym before 6 every day. That happens some days, but I have a very unorthodox approach to productivity. And yeah, productivity and being consistent in things. It's not really a time-based thing. It's like when you can based. So even with the coaching, for example, I schedule sessions throughout the day. So there isn't like a time slot from like 7 a.m. to 10 that I'd have morning sessions and then, I don't know, even afternoon sessions from 3 p.m. to 6. It's like where can I fit it in for people? And then I will move things around that too. So I'll go do a strength training session at 11 o'clock maybe, and do a run in the evening after coaching sessions. And yeah, the things that I do keep in place roughly is eating. Yeah, I do
Which is
need
a
to eat every
necessity, obviously.
exactly. Gotta eat.
Yeah, so you'd say a lot of the people don't use their calendar efficiently, and like that's where a lot of time management issues come
Yeah,
around.
it's
Or
it's time management. That's a big problem. Also, life direction is another one. A lot of people just kind of follow. They're in a bad flow, I would say, like one that's not within their control or decisions. So I define this by going according to things that you didn't choose to engage in. So as in, you didn't think it through, you kind of just let other people's information inform your decision. The classic example is when people go to study after high school and they're like, oh, I don't really know what I want to be, but everybody else is going to university. Maybe I should go to university too. So then they look at the degrees and they look at the um, classes that they took in high school and think, okay, well, where can I make the most amount of money with the least amount of effort? Is usually logic behind it. And then that combined with what their friends are doing, what their parents are suggesting, they go and do it. And you could say, I mean, if you look at my life, right? From the outside, it would look like I did the exact same thing as that because both my parents are lawyers and I did study law. But the reason why I wanted to study economics and then law was because I didn't really have an understanding of how the world worked. And I felt that, at least from a business perspective, it's very useful to know where you can go wrong and what you can do that might screw you over. A lot of people have no idea how the law works or how economics works. But fortunately, I do, and I've mitigated my fears of the world being so scary through studying those degrees. And that's weirdly the most value that I've gotten through it, is that I was a very, very anxious, scared kid. And like, I was like, like if I do these wrong practices, I'm gonna get sued, and then I'm gonna lose all my money, and then I'm gonna end up in jail, and then I'm gonna be poor, and like, you know, basically struggling through life because of those fears. And I just had to go and find out, hey, it's not that bad, you know. Plenty of people don't pay the taxes until the following year, and they don't end up in jail, you know. That's a really bad example. You should pay your taxes on time. I'm not. That's not advice. That's just like don't stress
No,
too
it's
much.
just reality.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is just the reality. But I do like what you said. It's a shame that, like the school system and everything in life kind of, like you said, from parents, from friends, from the influence or what we're supposed to do with our lives, only when we get a frontal lobe or the more we age, we start realizing what we want and what we want to do. You kind of fall for the system of schools and, hey, you got to be up at this time, you got to get this job, this is what you got to move towards because of income. But then, you kind of lose that happiness of, I don't want to do this. I actually want to do something more with my life. That's why people will go do outrageous things. Entrepreneurs often come at a later age to be like, hey, I'm actually done doing this because they know what they want at a later age. So it is quite a shame, like you said. And it's nice that the world is so aware these days, but it is still a common problem.
I definitely. I find your decision making in terms of life very admirable, given your age and what you've decided to do at the point in your life thus far. Mostly because you didn't take a traditional route per se, and you are very much entrepreneurial, at least on the back end of things. And I think you're heading more and more towards that, especially with this podcast. Hey, like you really enjoy this podcast, and you can see the passion in that through your efforts around it. Like you
Thank you. I
really, really
appreciate that.
the,
Yeah.
the way that you show up in terms of your communication, and you can see it's excited. You're excited, and it's the best thing in the world to see people that are actually enjoying what they're doing. And fortunately, it makes it a lot easier for you to show up because, like, I mean, one of the topics that you put forward ahead of time of this video was like discipline over motivation. But you're very motivated because you're liking what you do. So,
Yeah.
is it discipline? You know, because I think sometimes discipline's doing what you don't want to do when you know you should. And yes, it's a good habit to have, but it's also very easy to grind when you have to and or when you don't know anything else. So a good example for this would be how I showed up in, let's say, in the first couple of years of studying, right? I would get up at 4 a.m. because I wanted to get to the university really early so that I could either like make notes, review things, and beat traffic. And also was extremely anxious about driving and traffic. And so, for context sake, I went to university in Belleville, the University of the Western Cape, and I stay in Plumstead, which is like southern suburbs. So it's not close. It's like 20 something kilometers, and there's a lot of traffic, even though it's like outbound. There's a lot of people that work in Belleville, and the taxis in the morning are extremely ruthless in terms of just getting around. They're like racing, and it really feels like a death race to a 18-year-old who just got their license, and Yeah, basically, very anxious, anxiety-inducing state to be in. But yeah, it's very easy. My point is that it's very easy to grind when you don't know anything else. Like you have no other choice. It's like what, you end up coming late to classes, and then you don't get to get the proper notes. You don't progress in the class. You don't um, progress academically. That wasn't an option, and I had to be on time, and I also didn't want to experience that. So waking up at 4 is easy. It's because I've got like this fear factor that's like, if you don't, you know that this happens. So you have to get up at 4. And getting up at 4 wasn't easy by any means, but it was a lot easier than suffering through the anxiety-inducing state, which was, the traffic in the morning going to town. I mean, sorry, to Belleville.
What you're saying is correct. I mean, you're using the fear factor. I mean, on the podcast, I've spoken a lot about the fear factor, but you're using it to push you towards a better thing than going backwards, being scared and not doing anything. You being scared and doing it because you don't want to end up, being late and ruining your career or, downgrading your life. Something I found with the fear factor, like when people get scared of it, they procrastinate. Procrastination's a big thing, like they think, oh, this project is due, but I don't know how to do it, or I gotta wait. Like when the time's close, I can worry about it. Procrastination's a big thing in the world, and I can imagine you deal with that a lot with clients and their time management.
Yeah,
What,
well, it's
how do
it's
you get out of that?
brought this up. So procrastination specifically, it's not so much fear as it is overwhelm. As in, they're not looking forward to the event that they're procrastinating around, right? So I've never procrastinated anything I've looked forward to. It's usually something that I've got some underlying emotion behind. And sometimes, yes, it's fear, sometimes it's anxiety, but most of the time it is the overwhelming sense, because when we procrastinate, we find other things to do. There's other things around that can be done. If my room was clean all the time, just for the sake of this example, if my room was clean all the time, I wouldn't have to clean my room as a avoidance task for the thing that I'm supposed to be doing. Do you know what I mean? So if you had
Yeah,
that sorted, then there's nothing to procrastinate around. There's no other tasks that I could really. Well, there are. I mean, everybody finds things, but let's say I can't go in like deep clean my room now. If I felt like the space around me and like my mental space as well as the things that I had to do were under control. The thing that we're avoiding just adds to it. It's like adding enough weight on top of the pile that we're now stressed.
mm,
Now we have to. But with regards to the procrastination and how to deal with it, usually viewing it as a there's actually a couple of strategies you can use to get through this, but viewing it as something that once it's over, you get to feel a sense of accomplishment from is a good way to start. Eliminating things so that there isn't anything to procrastinate around in your daily life in general is a great practice just to have. Constantly keeping a clean room, constantly scheduling things to be done at specific times or on specific days at least, or within a time frame like a week. That's how I run my week, and how I avoid procrastinating. But also just having things that you aren't gonna procrastinate around in the first place is great. So doing things that you enjoy doing, working in an environment that you enjoy making progress in is another thing. And constantly showing up to things that you find uncomfortable in general and building up that base also really helps, because you know that, hey, even though the thing that you are avoiding doing is uncomfortable, you've done a lot of uncomfortable things, and keeping a list of things, difficult things that you've gone through as motivation, one of the best things it's like a cookie jar. I don't know if you listen to or consume any David Goggins content.
oh yeah, of course, the
Oh, okay.
king of the mindset.
Yeah, 100%. As a runner, not a great person to listen to, but as no anybody else, brilliant. Um, yeah, he's definitely gotten a lot of people injured in terms of running. That's the only other thing I'll say over there. But he's got this. he's got this mind frame um, tool called the cookie jar. And that's just a list of things that's in his brain that he knows that, hey, he did that. And like, that's something that he didn't think he could have done at the time, and he got over it. So, one of the things that I haven't had in my cookie jar until recently, for example, is the so okay, for context, last year I did an ultra marathon. It was my first one. I only ran a marathon a month before the time, and I signed up to run a 100K trail race the next month, almost like exactly a month after. So I decided, I think like 3 weeks before the marathon, that I was going to do the ultra. And I started just training for the ultra instead of the marathon, because the marathon was just like, oh, that's just like a blip, in comparison to the bigger thing that I just signed up for now. And yeah, so I'm doing the race. I'm 30 Ks in. I'm feeling good. Keep in mind, I did prepare for this. I didn't just like mindset my way over it. Like I trained consistently up until the point of this race. And at 30K, I rolled my ankle, and it was about a grade 2 roll. So it wasn't light. Like I heard a snap, and I just chose for like the next 27 Ks to kind of ignore it. Not a good thing to do, by the way. Like you can't pretend like an injury doesn't exist. You can't mindset your way out of that. But you can, after accepting it, do the best that you can with the circumstances that you have. And that's what I did. That's what's in my cookie jar. I know that I can continue 70 plus Ks, with a rolled ankle, and with increasingly difficult odds and increasingly difficult circumstances that are very much not in my favor. After, yeah, already doing 30 Ks. But that's something that not a lot of people would be able to say, hey, I could do that. It's very tough. So maybe talking to that person isn't that bad, that I'm now in this moment feeling a bit anxious about doing, you know? Because who else is doing 70 Ks on a rolled ankle? I don't think a lot of
Yeah, no,
people.
of course.
Definitely not a lot of smart people too. Like, hey, if I wasn't as stubborn as I am, I really should have, you know, like pulled the plug on that one.
Yeah,
Will I?
so you're saying
Yeah,
like that cookie jar method is a good way to think of like, hey, you've got this under your bag or this in your accolades. Like, what
yeah.
is the one thing of this getting in your way of achieving another thing?
It's like it's keeping a record of the things that you're most proud of. I'm, I've got a very small list of that, but I'm very proud of that list. Like,
I mean, quality over quantity.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, look, go for quantity. You're never gonna get quality out of quantity, but you'll get a fraction of it, and that's what you really want. And
yeah.
you don't get that fraction without doing the mass, unfortunately.
I did enjoy when you said, I took a lot from that when you said removing like your procrastination distractions. Like
Hmm.
if you know that you don't want to do the work, but then you're going to go on your phone and play a game, or that you're going to go, I don't know, hop on a PlayStation or go kick the ball around. Like you got to eliminate some of those things, pick your sacrifices. I think
Yeah.
we use the word sacrifice as too much of a negative thing. We should use it as a benefiting, like I'm sacrificing my time, but I'm actually change the narrative. I'm benefiting my time. I'm doing something more productive that I know I should be doing instead of sacrificing my time on something that I shouldn't be doing.
100%. You're using it perfectly there. You're basically, by saying no to the one thing, you're saying yes to the other thing. That's exactly what it is. You're not sacrificing something. You're just saying yes to something else, in a sense. So, I PlayStation's a good example, right? That's one thing that I've never. I meant to sell it. I really did, but then I never did because fucking Facebook Marketplace and people trying to like undercut you and stuff. So I put it in the cupboard and never touched it again. At one point, like at some point, I think it was last year or the year before, and that was a really great way to procrastinate. What I would do, especially in high school, oh, not even in high school, in university, right? FIFA, I used to love playing FIFA. I would use FIFA as a procrastination tool for not studying for something or not completing an assignment. And just eliminating the option is brilliant. Like, you just put it out of your sight, out of mind, put it in the cupboard so that, like, For example, it's in my cupboard right now. But in order to get it out of my cupboard, I have to go get a chair. I have to take off bags. I have to like my room's gonna be a mess just trying to get this thing out of the cupboard. There's a lot of effort required just to get it out of there. And fortunately, that effort is enough for me not to want to get it out, and enough for me to, for at least my brain to think that we can forget about it because we're never gonna do it, right?
I get you because you've put friction between it. Like now, like you said, there's too much effort to go and get it. Like now there's a friction or there's a reason that you can't get it, at least to your brain.
Yeah, yeah. And look, here's another great example, right? This is relative to the first, I mean, second question that you asked, but another thing that people struggle with is getting up on time, and especially when they don't have like a work place to get to, right? So when they're working for a boss and they have to get to, let's say, town or something and be at a office on time, there's that anxiety of like, I'm gonna let this person down. This person's relying on me. They're paying me. They're in a position of authority, and they're basically scared of the boss. So they are motivated to do the thing. But if they're working for themselves and they've decided, hey, I really want to start waking up early so that I can go to gym, so that I can work out before work and then go to work, which requires them to wake up a couple hours earlier, then all of a sudden, they're not very motivated to get up at the time that they said. They're not motivated to go to sleep 2 hours earlier so that they are rested to do the gym session anyways. So you can reason your way out of that, but what people don't do is put that, eliminate those options, right? So, for example, a lot of the things that people do is they have their phone very close to their bed, like next to it. They charge their phone next to their bed, which means that as soon as that alarm goes off, snooze.
Snooze button. Yeah.
So something I always tell people is, hey, put your phone across the room, or even in the next room if you can leave your door open, so that you have to get out of bed to switch off the alarm. And also make the alarm something that you don't want to hear. Like I've got the classic alarm sound on my alarm, and yo, um, the alarm is called "Wake Up or Die," even though like that's not realistic. It's just to add some like motivation to the fact that like you're wasting time in your life if you don't get up. And
I mean, that alarm gives PTSD. Every time I hear it in a video or someone else's,
dude,
it gives you this feeling.
it's like a siren. It's like a tsunami siren. It's like a get the fuck up, you know? We gotta go. The boats are on fire or some shit. Yeah. So yeah,
But I do think that's right. You said that, like waking up early is harder compared to if you have someone you don't want to disappoint, like if you have a gym partner, you're more obliged to go because that person's going to be,
100%.
whether or not they care or not, they're going to be like, well, fuck, dude, you didn't show up.
Yeah.
And that comes into feeling of like, I think motivation, discipline, one's a feeling, one's a choice. Discipline is like, you don't care how you feel, you just end up doing it. But motivation is purely on the fact of, wow, I actually feel good today. Let me go do it, you know?
Yep, look, motivation is the whole discipline versus motivation thing is going to be forever in debate because different people respond differently to different things. So most people, I'd say, don't like the whole idea of discipline because it's very much devoid of feeling sometimes, and people don't like the whole stoic ignorance of feelings philosophy. So I do think that some people have the wrong approach when it comes to that, as in like they just don't understand it, but that's okay. Something that would be better, or a better frame of looking at it, is devotion, right? You're not disciplined in the sense that you're doing things that you don't want to do for the sake of getting the things that you want to get. You're doing things that you should do in order to get the thing that you want to get. So you're devoted to the outcome. You're like think about it as like a marriage, right? You and the thing that you want for yourself, right? If you're devoted to that thing, of course you're not gonna press snooze because that would be like cheating on the thing that you're married to, right? That would be extremely disrespectful to the outcome that you want to achieve. So if you're devoted to the outcome, if you've like got that serious buy-in, as in we're doing this because we're committed to this, then it's not really a discipline. It's not really like a I'm doing this even though I hate doing this, and like I hate doing this, and like the hatred of the process. It's like a love for the process, which I think, at least in my philosophy about it, or my approach, is that it's a lot more loving because you're doing things that you actually like to do, and you're making progress towards things that you want to see, even if it comes with a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice because you want to do it, because it's like you
I
love
really love that.
the outcome.
Yeah. So you're saying if you can kind of change that perspective of, you choosing to do something, then it's
It's
not really
definitely
a
a reframe.
discipline.
Yeah.
On that, it touches two things where it's really curious that I think curiosity usually gets with people. It's like doing the hard thing and starting the hard thing. Why is it harder to start than it is doing the actual hard thing? Because once you get into the flow, it becomes easier. I know when we had our sessions, you explained so nicely about that brain part and how it expands. And once you go to it, it shrinks again. And then you need another hard thing so that it expands. I think that's a great point for you to bring up because
Anterior
people always
mid-cingulate
struggle to
cortex.
implement it.
Yeah.
Mm,
I remember how in that section just forgot what it was called, but it's called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, and it's the center that essentially is its willpower. You know, it's like how much are you gonna put in after you don't want to do it? And this was an episode with David Goggins and Dr. Andrew Huberman. Came out at the start of last year, and yeah, it's a good thing to develop that center, right? It's very good to do that, and it's interesting because they also mention it in that episode, but you can find yourself enjoying the thing that you were doing that you didn't want to do, which means that you don't get the gains of the willpower gains of continuously doing it because now you enjoy doing it, right? So like after a while, waking up in the morning becomes the norm. You don't have to struggle through it as much. So are you actually like developing your willpower in that? Probably not. If you hate running and you run every day, and next thing you know, like you're on a run and you're like, wow, I really love the serotonin and endorphins I get after the run. Maybe running's not that bad. Then you start to love it. Oh no, now we have to go find something. But you get where I'm going with this is that you can't keep chasing
yes.
stuff that you hate in order to get the outcomes that you want to get. Otherwise, you're just gonna be miserable. It's not a very like happiness searching. I don't know. Uh, way of looking at life or going through life.
I'm so happy you brought up happiness though, because I think people misconcept, like the opposite of happiness is sadness or anger, or, those type of feelings. But, you know, sadness and anger still shows that you care about something so much. Like if you're angry about a friend or you're sad about something closing, you still have a feeling or something to care about in life. I think the opposite of happiness, and I got this from Mark Manson, is hopelessness, because then you have nothing to care for in life. You don't have a feeling towards anything in life. And I think happiness, the new take or new narrative I've taken from it, is that you simply have, whether it's one or several things, you care about something. So if you do care about running, you end up enjoying it more, like you said.
So you've been reading Everything is Fucked, a book about hope, right?
Yes.
Um, his first book's a lot better, but there's a lot of meaning in that. His first book's written better. There's a lot of meaning
Mm.
in Everything's Fucked as well. I I do appreciate his take on that, and it's very much I agree with that. As in sadness, not really the opposite of happiness. It's when people are still, when people are accepting hopelessness and they're just nihilistically going through the day and life, really, because meaning is missing and fulfillment's missing, and it's like a content for the mundane, but not a love of the mundane. So we have to do these things. And this is just how life is, and this is as good as life gets, is the mindset in the opposite of happiness. Whereas when you're a happy person, sometimes you actually really like cooking. for example. Like a lot of people will view cooking as like a task that they have to do, but when you're happy and you're enjoying the process because your life is everything you have to do. So like if you can try and find fulfillment and enjoyment in even cooking, then you're just gonna have a better time of doing things that you don't want to do later on as well. Like things that genuinely are hard, like that you don't want to do and that actually suck, and that you had no choice in in whether they manifested or not. So yeah, cooking's great, man. And
I mean, at the end of the
finding
day,
errands, yeah.
it's like it all shows your controls and your values, you know, like it's I am able to be in control, that I can choose what I want to cook, or that I value food so healthy to me, or that it helps my body. Like, why wouldn't you be happy of having the task of being in control of that, you know?
Yeah, it's very much a luxury. As in like it's something and you meditate all the time. I'm sure you've come to realize this is that being able to cook and being able to have the time to cook is something that we can very much take a lot of gratitude sorry, have a lot of gratitude for because whew, the amount of people that just like order food these days or like you get to that point of we don't have enough time, we have to eat something and we have to now eat badly because that's cheap and that's quick, and we still need to get to sleep. So, it's like a throw in the towel sort of thing. I mean, I I used to never like meal prepping, and to be honest with you, if I had the time to not do it, I would never do it because like fresh food is really great to eat. But meal prepping, even the process of meal prepping, love doing it because it saves me so much time later in the week. I don't have to eat like shit as well. And I don't have to order like crap later on in the week, fast food. And look, you can order healthy fast food like from Hawaii and stuff, but that adds up. So just taking the time, cooking in bulk, just yeah, meal prepping essentially, and getting to eat good food that you enjoy is such a privilege, such a thing to be grateful for.
Yeah, right. I think a lot of people forget, and it's always a constant talk about gratitude because there's moments you lose it and there's moments you feel it heavy. I came to a decision. I made a post about it, I think, or I haven't made it yet. My mind is like a philosophy book in here,
I
but
noticed. I
it was
really
a,
enjoy the posts,
yeah,
especially on
thank you.
LinkedIn. It's like the only thing that shows in my feed. That's why
I
I mean, I'm
appreciate it.
sure you saw in the week, but like when I was on
Yeah,
LinkedIn,
Jaden Allen, Jaden Allen.
I can liking every one of them. Yeah, man.
Because it
Um,
made me realize, with gratitude, like we lose it so often because we complain about the things we don't want, and then we complain about the things we have. Like, oh, I don't want this and that. Thank God I don't have it. But then we get, for example, the smallest materialistic things. Someone gets you a Christmas present, and then you're unhappy with it, but it's something you have that someone doesn't have the luxury of having.
sorry, that one specifically is interesting. Sorry, I'm getting lost in here, but um, like going down a completely different rabbit hole. As in, like the gifts that we receive from people. What do you think about that? As
I
in,
love it.
like in
Like,
terms of the value that it provides.
it's invaluable to me. Younger years, like when you're a kid, you start understanding those things, but
Mhm.
actually, it's a paradox because you know that it's something special. It's from someone you love. It depends on your relationship with the person that gave that to you as a kid. You're like, my favorite aunt got me this. I'm gonna treasure this. But if it's like, oh, that bummer of an uncle gave me this, I don't really care for it. But nowadays, it's like it's the thought. I really do understand it's the thought that counts. Like someone thought of you when getting this. It's not necessarily the gift is the meaning. It's the gift has a meaning.
I get that. I like that. I like looking at it from that perspective when it comes to receiving it. What about usage of it? Like, let's say hypothetically, right? Do you drink like
Uh,
alcohol?
I stopped for a while, so I don't really drink that much anymore.
Let's pretend you didn't drink at all, right? And somebody got you a really nice wine. Let's say it's an ice wine from Canada or something. And I don't know, you're never gonna drink it because you know that you don't drink wine. It's nice that they got you this thing. It's nice that they thought of you, but the meaning of the gift doesn't really suit you, right? So you appreciate the value which somebody wanted to give you because this is an expensive wine. You know that like they put in efforts to get this for you, even though it didn't in a meaningful way as a sense of you using it translate. But you have a friend that loves wine, and they're like a fanatic about it. And like you were speaking the other day with them about having ice wine. I'm sorry, they were speaking to you about it because they found out about it, and they were like, "Did you know that in Canada they let the grapes sit on the branches until they freeze in the winter, and then they pick them then when they're the most juiciest, and they make the sweet wine out of it?" And they were really passionate about it. And that person's birthday is coming up, and you have this ice wine now. Would you re-gift it?
I think, not I think, I know I would because it's not in tune for me and I'm grateful for the person that gave it for me. But it's like, I think of it in this term, I'm passing it forward or I'm passing, what do they say? Pay it
Yeah,
forward. You know, I'm
yeah,
taking,
yeah, in a
I
sense.
will treasure the moments and the thoughts, but if I know it's not going to be in use, I will share it to the person that it will be used for and I would still hold the memory of it, you know?
Mm. Yeah, exactly. I like that. That's exactly the approach that I was trying to elicit there. And a big one that I'm trying to um, incorporate into my life is with regards to books. And me never gonna read, I know I'm never gonna read them again. So this one over here, Hardest Geezer, Mind Over Miles, it's by, what's his name? His name's not, oh sorry, his Instagram profile's The Hardest Geezer, but it's Russ Cook, right? So this book was given to me, and a couple of other books, by a friend of mine from my running club, and he was like, okay, I finished reading that book and I was going to give it back. Sorry, there was a fly, and I was going to give it back. But then he was like, no, I'm never going to touch it again. Give it to somebody else. And then I realized, holy shit, I've got a lot of books over here that I'm never going to read again. And like, I could just replace those with things that I'm going to read eventually and like value that I'm going to take on. And I can pass this value along to somebody who's going to find it meaningful. Like
Of
that.
course, I
This
agree 100%.
yeah, and you can do that with anything, not just books. You can do that with gifts. You can do that with things that are going to be in better hands.
I've been reading, I also read the Jay Shetty Live Like a Monk, and you know, he's all about service, whichever way. Like, I think it can be a career, it can be who you are. You serve by helping people through their life planning. I try and serve to try and help people grow through this. It's simple as a mother serving as cooking for the house and cleaning to a dad serving and picking a kid up from school, going to work, from a grandpa serving of, you know, taking them out for lunch. You know, the service is what makes the world go around, that people are constantly giving. You know, I think the people that think that taking is more than giving is the ones like the narcissists and the people of this
Yeah.
planet or earth that we are on that ruin it because they'd rather take than give and they go against the grain of service. They'd rather be the people being served. So, yeah, I don't know your thoughts
I
on
don't
that.
mind. Did you say Jay Shady? The Black Man?
Yes,
Oh, no. Oh, okay, it was him. Um, it's interesting that you say that, right? Because it's very difficult to actually distinguish between who believes in that philosophy or not, right? Money is definitely a medium of energy exchange, right? However, it's been diluted through greed. So now what we have found is that people have a lot of this energy disproportionately to the amount of effort that they put in to achieve that, well, to acquire that energy, right? So let's take the billionaires of the world, right? Um, Millionaire status, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, depending on the culture which they created in order to achieve that. So, for example, if somebody's a millionaire, but hey, they own a sweatshop and they're employing kids to make their clothes for them for nothing, that's not exactly admirable or a equivalent exchange of energy. That's a diluted exchange of energy. So you can see it in like the people who have enough that they believe that yes, the service is great and that's the way that you should be living your life in the world. And I mean, let's take my coaching for example. It's a service, yes, but the exchange needs to be worthwhile. I can't change an absorbent. Sorry, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, I can't charge a unrealistic or unfair price for my service. Or let's say if I had a course, right, for that value to be exchanged and for that service to be meaningful. So, great example of somebody who I think does this right is Alex Ramosi. Most of the courses that he has, that are very, very valuable, and a lot of the information that he just gives away for free, very valuable. That's him serving. His social media, the way that his whole team runs their company, and how they get their media out into the world, extremely, extremely valuable. His books, $1 on Amazon or something like that. And the main work and the main reason why he's a billionaire is because they do high tickets after all of this. So if somebody is over 100 million, that's when they'll start to work with people to help them build their wealth even more. But the exchange and the service that they provide is at like almost nothing for everybody else because it's the service. So, I mean, Alex Hormozy in that regard is a good example. I don't know in terms of his work ethic and in terms of how he lives his life if a lot of people want to look at him holistically as somebody that they would want to model because, and this isn't my words, but he's genuinely obsessed about what he does. He loves it so much. He loves it more than his wife. His words, not mine. If you want to model somebody like that, sure, okay. But like the guy really likes what he does, and that's
I
like an
mean, you are
understanding.
so correct. I think everyone knows the Chris Williams, the Alex Hormozy, the David Goggins, the Tony Robbins, all those people.
Yeah,
And Alex Hormozy genuinely, like, it's so much so, everything he's saying is so true because he's open about it. It's so much so he brought his wife, like, they would not be married if they weren't ventured into work. Like, it made logical sense for them to be together. And they've openly said that the reason
they
they
were
are
the
together
best.
is
They
because it
are
makes
the
sense
best
business way.
partners for each other,
Yeah,
specifically.
it makes sense. And yes, we don't see those background things, but what they portray is straightly that they are partners more than they are partners.
A lot of people would look at the success of a Chris Williamson or uh, or a David Goggins even, right? And say like, oh, they'd really like a partner that was that successful. But do you see everything that they have to do to be that successful? It's a level of obsession. It's like David Goggins doing a random 100-mile rock out of nowhere and his partner following him with a car behind so that he has a light. Would they be willing to be the partner that like does that? Because a 100-mile rock for anybody, let's say an elite athlete does 100 miles in on a flat road in 14, 16 hours. You're gonna follow your partner for 14 to 16 hours? I'm not sure. You know, everybody else has a life to live as well. So it's like, what do you
I
think
mean,
is worthwhile?
as you said that as well, like Chris Williamson always does the Q&As and everyone's constantly asking him about like, hey, when are you going to get married or what are your plans in the future with kids? And he openly says like he hasn't found someone that's willing to put up with things that he's doing, like his career and the podcast and everything he's doing takes main priority. I mean, even the football player, I know this probably seems crazy because, I'm Asian, but Heung-min Son, his story was ridiculous. I found out he's not allowed
Is
to
it
have a wife, and
is
that's
it
not
just
just
split
because
apart?
of
Sorry, out of
he
interest.
just went to America.
Oh,
Yeah, he just went
huh.
to America now. Yeah, LA Galaxy, I think. But his father and him both agreed that he won't start a family until football's done because his career comes first. Like everything he's working hard for, and if you model yourself over people like that, it's like you got to choose what you want. People complain with their partners coming in with work. Like most of these people say no work-life balance, and unfortunately, your life does include your partner.
So look, it's about what you're willing to put up with and what you want to see out of that. So a lot of people, I think a lot of people would more so relate to my coaching because it's very, I would say, understanding and not rooted in obsession. And I don't mean that to say obsession's bad. I mean that to say it's what most people would tolerate and what most people would find meaningful. Most people who are very successful find that very meaningful, and that obsession is what makes them feel alive. And that, like, commitment and, again, devotion is what allows them to actually feel good about themselves and happy with their lives because they're constantly making progress to the thing that they want to see realized. And if the thing that you're wanting to see realized is, I don't know, a wife and kids, house in the suburbs, and like you get meaningfully rewarded for your work, and you can afford to go on holiday once, twice a year, and that's what you'd really love to do, then a mundane lifestyle is what you should be striving for. Is that you have the consistency of a paycheck, you get rewarded each year with pay raises or yeah, what's the word I'm looking for now? Yeah, you're promoted at work and stuff, and that's measurable by the amount of effort you put in. Okay, cool, but you're not going to find meaning if you're that person and you're wanting to get those things in posting every day like you do on social media, right? Massive respect to that, and I love that you do it, but I don't do that every day. It's just because it's not where I'm trying to optimize for. You know, I'm very much optimizing for, hey, I don't feel anxious about things every day because I come from a very anxious background, and I am finding meaning in my life with the efforts that I put in, which is a lot of effort, and it's like hours every day. A lot of my time goes towards work, and then running, and then relationships and maintaining relationships, even though maintaining relationships is a big part of my work as well. So, yeah, it's what you optimized for. That's
Yeah,
it.
I get that. Like even when you say the obsession for some people, it's like that imaginary carrot on the end of the stick. You know, like they're constantly chasing that thing that makes them feel great. So I get exactly what you're saying there. And then, in regards of your coaching and stuff, with everything you're speaking about with people, like how you keep your relationships and you must see a lot of different people here and out and you have to deal with, people are a lot of work. There must be a lot of people that self-sabotage without knowing it. Self-sabotage versus, let's say, self-discipline. Some people are, okay, I can do this, but some people I can do this, but subconsciously knowing that they won't do it, like they'll ruin it more because they don't, I don't know, feel deserving of it. I don't know if you've witnessed those things.
Yes, no, I have. Yes. Okay. So let me give you a good example over here, right? Um, a lot of people are making excuses these days, and I don't think we're doing them any favors by, I want to say, validating their feelings with regards to those excuses. Okay? So a great excuse would be ADHD and whether somebody is on time or not. Um, for example, in the week, with regards to my work, I cannot afford not to be on time. If I'm not on time for a session or I'm not 5 minutes early for a session, then it shows that I'm unprofessional, right? I cannot say to a client, I'm really sorry, time blindness, ADHD, right? You can't give them that excuse. It's just how you show up, right? And I genuinely mean this in a very empathetic way that some people have really, really, really bad ADHD and need to be on medication and need to manage that from that sense. But we're giving people the opportunities to give a lot of excuses these days and self-sabotage, like you said. So using ADHD as an excuse. Heck, nowadays people are thinking that they're autistic when they're not. And look, I think that awareness is a great thing, like especially for people who genuinely are autistic. And I know a lot of people who are. And trust me, they're not telling people they're autistic. Like, you can tell, okay? And you can tell that they struggle with regards to how they show up in socialization and in work and all these other settings. Like, you'd have to be very aware of what's going on and them to include them in conversation sometimes. And to be I wouldn't say tolerant, but accepting of how they respond in that regard. Like, they don't respond like normal people do. And they don't engage with people normally, like everybody else would. Me, you having a conversation like we are right now, a lot of autistic people couldn't do that in that sense, or pick up on social cues, or yeah, it's very difficult to navigate that. But people do make excuses for themselves all the time, and they really like it because it gives them a default that makes them think that they didn't have a choice in the matter when they did. And even with regards to mild ADHD, especially with people who have self-diagnosed, right? So it's way better to think that you don't have it at all. Assume that you don't have it, and rather go about life looking at things in the sense of you can do them, then you're limited by this other thing. Depending on the severity, of course. If it's very bad, you should be medicating. Um, or trying to work through the triggers to why. So ADHD is a very interesting one. And because it's genetic, first of all, but it also needs an environmental trigger in order to actually manifest. So let's hypothetically say you were never in the environment that would have manifested it. You could go 40 years without experiencing the symptoms of ADHD. And then you're in the right amount of stress, in the right amount of disorder, and yeah, the right environment that would trigger it. And then you have it now. Now you can't seem to concentrate on too many things at one time. You can't lock in when you need to. And that's hyper focus is a different thing, but you are blind with regards to your time because of your hyper focus states, as in you just disregard it, or you think that, or you disproportionately calculate how much time you need to spend on something. Like, this task should take 5 minutes, it takes half an hour. I can get ready and be at the event in half an hour. I should leave at 12:30, right, to get there at 12. But then you're not ready at 12:30 when you see it's time to go. And then you start getting ready at 12:30 when it's time to go. And then it actually takes you half an hour. And now it's 12 o'clock and you should have already been at the place. And what's your excuse? ADHD. Sorry guys, time blindness. Instead of just accurately when those moments happen, which they do. And we can decide in those moments that, hey, this happened this one time. I fucked up. I was late. I was late because I thought it was going to take me half an hour to get ready. Right? And I only ended up leaving at the time I was supposed to be there because I only started getting ready when I had to leave. So I should probably set an alarm half an hour before I have to leave to get ready. And look, I mean, the way I deal with it is I pretend that I'm supposed to be at a place half an hour before the time, as in that's the time that I should be there, so that I get on time to the place, which is early. And then I do actually get ready on time. And yeah, we can find these excuses across the board. We can find these moments of self-sabotage within everybody sometimes, especially when it's close to getting to something that we actually want to get. And then we think that, oh, I'm not ready for it. And we get stressed out about whether we deserve it or not sometimes. Like, great example is people in a loving relationship, and then they finally meet somebody that meets all the criteria of what they'd like out of a partner. Like, they're extremely supportive. They message on time. They're like very good communicators. They tell you when they're stressed or when they're not going to be able to communicate. They show up to support you. They have a job. They are great with their family, all that stuff. And then some people get stressed out by that and realize that, oh, this person's now too good for me because, like, I don't message on time, or I don't have a good relationship with my family, or I'm not in the place of my career that I would want to be at. And now it's like a weird comparison thing. And then they think that they're not the partner that they want to be, so I'm going to discard the relationship that I was really hoping for and thought that I needed in order to go and better myself and all that.
This is why you're a life coach and you're the pro here. And I highly advise people to go check out TerraFlow Coaching because everything you're saying is so practical and like a logical sense. It's a perspective that's outside. Like it's simple, not obvious. I've been loving that lately because people know what they have to do, but they don't know how, or they don't know when or what. Like you even said, they don't feel ready or they feel accepting. And the way you put things, like even all the examples you have, simply from the alarm of this is the time I think I have to be there, to relationship of like now I'm comparing myself to my partner. These are genuine struggles people have and are like battling with day to day. It's probably some of the common ones you might come across. And I really think that your outlook on it and your advice and the way the action you would take, you kind of put, like you say, understanding. You put yourself in those shoes and you recommend how you would do it because that shows a level of connection. Like, wow, if Jaiden can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be as relatable as possible, and it means a lot to me when I get to do something with somebody else that I've struggled with myself. So, I guess another reason why I wanted to pursue the life coaching thing was because I was a very anxious individual. And I very much had the perspective that I was an introvert, and um, turns out no, actually I was just really socially anxious and hated being in social environments because I was anxious, and it wasn't anything to do with whether or not I had a social battery that was draining, or whether or not I enjoyed being social and around people and doing things with people, which I actually do love doing. I just get very anxious, and it's something that I've managed to mitigate it with proof over time. So I thought that people wouldn't like me, for example, and that me speaking to people, just having conversations with them, would further prove, like, give reasoning to not like me, right? And going in a sober way, also for context sake, I used to use alcohol as a anxiety dampener, which, for if the audience don't know, it's a positive feedback loop, because alcohol reduces anxiety, but it only reduces it for a certain period of time, and you have to keep on consuming in order to get that benefit, but you get drunk faster than you get that benefit. So it wasn't a very good thing socially for, let's say, not reputation, but perceptions of others. Because, I mean, if anybody has been really, really drunk before, they don't like how they've presented during that moment. So I had to, in a sober state, put myself in the uncomfortable positions that I didn't want to be in and that I thought was going to have a certain outcome. And I had to prove to myself that that outcome was it was a false fear. You could say it was a fear, like false evidence appearing real, right? If we use that acronym for it. But yeah, I had to take gradual, tolerable steps to change that narrative that I had of Jaiden's an introvert and Jaiden doesn't like being around people, to Jaiden actually is just really anxious, and accepting that and being like, hey, we need to work through these by putting ourselves in environments that cause this anxiety, um, with tolerable steps. That's just like, wow, okay. Finally, I can use all the effort that I've put into to figuring it out myself to help people.
But that's what people need, right? They always want someone that's done it, like showing that there's proof, because a lot of people are like, oh, that's impossible, or that doesn't work out. And actually, a paradox of it is when you do it, it's like, oh, it's because it's Jaden, oh, because he's special, just because he did it, I can't do it.
Yeah, I really hope that I've never had that effect, because, and I guess I would for a lot of people that meet me where I am now. Because a lot of people who have met me, let's say, over this last year, they have no idea how, like, socially anxious or neurotic I used to be. Like, fortunately, I am even working with somebody who's known me from that period of time, that I was extremely I found it extremely difficult to interact in social settings. I found it very difficult to pick up on social cues and to relate to people and to be empathetic and to actually uh, care about things that were outside of how I'm feeling, because I was feeling stressed and anxious all the time around people. So, not from like a, so what do you put, from a narcissistic point of view of the self, but from a, I can't relate to you because I'm feeling so much right now that everything else is blinded to me. To now I'm comfortable and I'm confident in my ability to work through things, that I've got the it's a bandwidth to look outside and to see that person's stressed right now, and maybe check on them and see if they're doing okay, what I can do to help, and actually be conscious of the environment that you're in and the situation and everything that's going on. And interestingly enough, meditation did help with that a lot as well. So, um, yeah, because it regulates your nervous system more importantly than anything. and it helps you to, when you apply it in the real world, become conscious of everything that's going on without it being overwhelming.
I love that because you're speaking of a serious topic where people, a lot of people are like, oh, the liquor and alcohol gives you confidence, and it's a controversial thing because there is so many drinkers in the world. But in reality, already assuming that or thinking that you've given power to the substance of thinking without it, you aren't confident, that you are just anxious or introverted. And like you said, the meditation and how you had to work through yourself, you start understanding your inner world and realizing, hey, there's actually control in my hands, that I can just go up to someone with free will and be like, hi, how are you doing? Instead of relying on a beverage to be one sip and I'm like, wow, you know, I can finally speak to you. It's the power you're giving to things. And, that really brings me to the level of understanding. People have to learn to understand their emotions, their feelings, their thoughts. And meditation helps me and it helps you. And I know for several people it doesn't because they can't deal with that world.
Yeah,
But from
your previous guest. I'm sorry, not your previous guest. The last one that you did in Cape Town was speaking on that, and like how it doesn't work for her. She owns a furniture restoring company.
Yes,
Um, I forget her name.
Daniela Milani. Yes.
Daniela. Yes. I listened to that podcast, obviously. But yeah, I definitely can understand why for certain people that certain things don't work, and other, how do I say, other methods need to be applied. So I don't have the assumption that everything that's worked for me is going to work for somebody else. That's why you can
For
never put
everyone
these things
else.
together in a course, man. Like that's
Mm.
why I hate the ideas of coaches coaching other coaches to coach people to sell a course. Do you know what I mean? Like that falls into the realm of you're not serving, you're trying to take advantage of people. You know?
And you can't put values onto other people. Values are all built up. You can influence them, yes, by
Yeah, for sure.
introducing them or showing them, but values only really come from inside of like, hey, wow, I actually enjoyed that. I found that meaningful to myself.
That's why a book, for example, written by somebody who doesn't have the same experience as you can relate to it because you can pick apart things that are going to be valuable to you. But if you're selling a course, again, back to the course example, I interrupted you, by the way. Very sorry about that.
No worries.
But if you're taking that and comparing it to a course, then the course is saying, do these things to get this outcome. Whereas the book is, this is the experience and this is the knowledge, apply it how you will and use what like you find works for you. So, I mean, remember when I was telling you not to read the 5 a.m. Club, right? Um, maybe it would work for some people to read that whole book, but it's written in a way that a fable should be written, but it doesn't have the same valuable effect as what it should. So, like I told you, there are like 5 pages in this book that I've like basically bookmarked that, yeah, have value, and they're all the pages that have tables in them that tell you do this thing, and you're gonna get an outcome. So yeah, it depends. It's very weird. You can find a course that will give you an outcome, maybe, but yeah, most of the courses out there are not designed in that way. They're just value for the sake of value, and rather than say value, information for the sake of information, masquerading as value. Um, yeah.
That's powerful. I love the way you worded that part, masqueraded as value, because it is true. Some of them are more of just like, you also see it on YouTube, you see it around the world of do these three things and I guarantee there's nothing of here are three options. This is how it worked for me. Because people love a success story, right? People love to see how it worked and how they can relate and see that there's a hope of possibility. Um, and that's why it's great to have that resonating part. But it brought me, speaking of all of this, you know, how do you get people? Because I was one of those people with you in the sessions, explaining the life that you want to live. And, all your clients must be, this is what I want to achieve and this is how I want to be. And the methods and habits and the person I want to be. How do you close that gap of like not settling for what they are and actually pursuing the life they want?
So I do assess whether people are coachable or not before coaching them. And I'm it's very important that people know this, right? I don't do the work for people. I also don't get people to do the work for themselves. They do that. And it very much does come from within, and it's very much motivated by them. And look, I do have activities and tools that I go through with people. A very good example is creating something that you are striving towards. So having like a, let's say you're a mouse, right? Having the smell of cheese that you're chasing towards. That's a very motivating feeling, right? You can double down on the motivation by adding the scent of a rat and on the one end of the tunnel, because that's going to be like, that's scary. And what you can do, if you, and this is a good exercise for anybody to do. So by all means, if you want to really motivate yourself, engage in this activity. Make a list of things that you don't want to happen and what would happen if you continuously do things that you know are bad for you. Where you'll end up, what will happen in your life, comparatively where your friends will be, comparatively where you will be in a negative setting, right? What's like the worst case scenario that can happen? If you abuse drugs and alcohol, if you never commit to work, if you never find something meaningful to actually work towards, if you never take your health seriously, if you never eat right, if you never exercise, write that out. Do it in a very visual sense. Picture it, right? And then on the other side of things, what happens if you actually stick to the plan that you make for yourself? What happens if you show up every day and you do your best? You genuinely do your best. What happens? Would you be confident that you can continue to do difficult things? Would you be a fitter individual? Would you feel and look better? Would you be happy with your appearance? Would you be making the amount of money that you're desiring? Would you be able to take care of people the way that you wish to? Would you be able to have the things that you wanted to have? What are those things? What does that look like? Write that down, picture it, like genuinely sit there and visualize it. This activity could take an hour or two. It took me like an hour and a half to do the first time I did it. And it's worthwhile revisiting this and reassessing these things every once in a while, because we're people, things change, life circumstances change, wants and desires change all the time. And also because we grow as people, things that scare us tend to change as well. So something that was particularly frightfully motivating at one point in time might not be as much later down the line. So continuously revisiting exercises like these and trying to motivate yourself towards doing the things you want to do is a great thing. But ultimately, yeah, I'm more of an accountability coach than anything else, because I keep track of what people are doing, why they're doing it, and I do help by giving activities like these and working through these with them and finding out how they felt, what they experienced, and how they're actively making actionable steps towards, or doing actionable steps towards doing the thing that they want to do or getting the thing that they want to get. And just keeping track of that. That's my main thing, is knowing where people were, what they're continuously doing, tracking that, checking in with them, finding out what roadblocks occur along the way, and guiding them through that. The actions, I can't do any of that. They have to do that themselves, always. And like the same thing in my life. The people that know what I'm doing and where I'm going, I can only tell them, they can only advise me. I have to show up and do the work. Otherwise, nothing happens.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because everything you're saying in terms of from the client to yourself, and it's in the peak of self improvement and growth, is because you also are teaching people and yourself, and they are learning that self growth is just learning to lie to yourself less, to be accountable, to be, hey, this is in the ball's in my court, it's up to me to control it, carry it, Um, and with those people, it's like it's resistance versus reality. You start realizing, through the sessions, what is in your control and what is simply out of, through what you provide. How do you make sure that people know, like, hey, dude, that is clearly not in your control. This is in your control. How I can imagine it's just only tough when some people do
I
bring
made it. How do
problems.
you get them to distinguish between
Yeah,
the two? That's what you're asking. So most people don't know until they know, right? So there's this nice saying that once you know better, you have to do better. Otherwise, you genuinely are lying to yourself. If people understood that, then they would realize that once they know better, they have to do better. So what's within their control, what's not within their control. Sometimes it's a fine line and you're continuously reassessing that over time, right? I gave you the example this morning of whether I should be going to do runs when it's extremely miserable and stormy. So probably not is the answer to that because I'm going to get sick again. And if you can hear my voice now, it's a bit scratchy because I went and ran in the rain, and it was storming yesterday, and I was on top of the mountain and cussing because the wind was hitting me and I was freezing. Not a very. I had and look, the gear. I had everything. I had you can't under prepare for that, and like I over prepared for it as much as you could, and yet still, I didn't. I should not have done that in hindsight. The wind was out of my control, but me deciding, hey, after looking at the weather report, I'm gonna go do that anyways. That was within my control, and now I've reassessed and realized, hey, next time, just don't go. If the weather's like that, because you want to be able to train later down the line. You want to be able to show up, to get consistent and proper training in throughout the week. So you have to make that sacrifice now. And now I know better, so I have to do better. So
that's a
yeah,
great example. Like as you said that example, I just put it to not the same, but the reality of it, like you said, should you have ran when the weather was bad? People sometimes, and this comes to the self-sabotage and the control thing as well. People often put themselves in like a really shitty situation knowing it's bad for them, but some part of them, whether it's like FOMO, whether it's influence, whether it's just lack of respect. Like they put themselves in situations that they had control over and then they complain about it, but you chose to go, which is good. From your mindset is you knew what was wrong, you know better, but sometimes people just don't know that better.
yeah. I'll add another layer of difficulty onto this, right? Let's say you're struggling with motivation, discipline, and showing up to running all the time, and you're trying to build the habit of running all the time, and you feel like even though all of these factors are telling you not to run, that you deciding not to run would be you not being disciplined. And you not showing up would mean that you're actually doing a bad thing by not engaging in this activity. So a lot of people, especially when they're trying to get disciplined with something, and something that ordinarily would provide an excuse or might look to them as an excuse here, is being thrown into the situation. And now looking at this thing, and this comes over time that you would realize that, look, if you're sick, if you genuinely are sick, you shouldn't be doing the thing that you're trying to build discipline in. And losing a day or two here means that you can pick it up again. And just being able to distinguish between that only comes from not doing that and running when you're sick or training when you're sick and finding, okay, we've made it worse now. And it was actually the opposite of discipline to go and train, because now we're still following that emotion of like, I'm doing the thing that I shouldn't be doing. But then again, like I said, you find out that that was not the right thing to do, and you learn that you need to do better by not doing it then.
Life is a lesson overall. Like we have to learn our way through it. It's not, no one has the manual. We all new to this. It's our first time living and experiencing it. Um, but coming towards the end of the podcast, there's something I want to leave behind that I want you to touch on, and then just your closing thoughts and final takeaways before we end here. But you know, leaving people better than you found them. And I love that because it's something that I think is in line with your work. And, it's like the peak value of what you try to do is to leave people better than what they came to you with. So just, yeah, your thoughts on that and all your final takeaways and closing thoughts you want to leave with the viewers.
I do like that. I love that, and I think that if you're the type of person that has a positive effect on people, you're always gonna leave them better than you found them. It is dependent on their ability to accept growth. And by that, I mean people are fixated on the things that they think that they know. And your ability to, even your mental framework to accept that you don't know everything, like you said, and that it is all our first time living life, that somebody's experience can better inform yours. So, yeah, when people, especially older people, right? Because I'm 25 years old and I'm a life coach, the audacity of this person, you know what I mean? Like, but it's not about audacity. It's not about me thinking that I know everything. I know I don't. I genuinely know I don't. But I do know that I've experienced life in a very specific way that a lot of people haven't experienced, and I've made decisions that people haven't made yet or haven't gotten the opportunity to learn from, which means that I can help people that have not been able to go through that. And that's like, I'm not helping people who know better. I'm helping people that don't. And yeah, it's very much energy related. So I'm sure you know this, but the common saying that I've heard this since high school, that you're the accumulation of the five people that you spend time with. And if you're not a happy, productive, healthy person who's principled and who shows up in their life, the other people that are around you probably aren't either, right? So having those people is very crucial, and being able to help their lives and have them help you. So it's like, I'm helping you help me, and you're helping me help you. Did I say that right? Anyways, vice versa is my point, is that you get to, yeah, have a positive impact on the world thereafter, and not necessarily always discarding people that you know. And this is the important part. Not always discarding people that you know don't have it all figured out or don't have something to give you. Everybody does have something that they could learn from anybody else, always, right? The amount of people and the frequency that you allow them to appear in your life, that's something that you have control over. But you showing up in somebody else's life and giving them a positive impact is extremely valuable for your growth and theirs. And the final thoughts on this is that you get to, and this is something that I had struggled with, especially at the start of last year and starting coaching, was having other people impact on how I was showing up in my life. Because if you are in a profession that's helping people that are worse off, they can have a negative impact on you. How much you allow that to happen is entirely within your control. How many clients do you take on? The type of clients you take on, how frequently you communicate with them, what sort of effort you're giving towards them, and the people that you genuinely are spending time with outside of your coaching relationships. And hey, people can get to a point in time where you could bring them in that close circle of five. But the likelihood is that if somebody is coming to you with a genuine struggle, and that's something that you've struggled with before, and you prioritize them, and you give all your effort towards them, what's going to happen is that they're not going to get better, you're going to get worse. So you have to consciously be aware of the type of effect that people's energy, who you're giving to and who are giving back to you, are having an effect on you with. So the energy that they give to you and the effect of it, and the energy that you're giving to them, and that effect that they're getting. So you can measure this, fortunately, if you're coaching, you are actually measuring people's progress, their actions, and the outcomes that that's having. If you can see it's going negatively, and if you can see that in your life, things are starting to like spiral downwards as a connection with the relationship that you have with those people, then you do need to create that distance, and you do need to give less effort. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't still give effort. You just need to be very considerate with how much, why, and whether it's worth it overall. Because people also need to want to change in order to actually change. And if somebody's telling you that they want to change, but then they're not showing you through their actions, then they don't want to change. And you should take that as a sign and not what they just say. But and also, sorry, another thing, the last thing, I swear, is you should, if you're helping people, never have to rely on them in order to help them. So with the coaching, right? If you're just starting out and you're in a job, definitely do it part-time because you never want to have clients. You never want to have to rely on you having clients in order to live. As in, you never want to take on people who, again, are paying you, but you know are having a detrimental impact on your life because you need money, for example. That's a very big lesson that I've learned. And that's why, like, I would be very analytical and very conscious of the effect that people are having in general, and create that distance between monetary value and also what you're doing and why you're doing it, because that it poisons both, unfortunately. So just be aware of that.
Those are great thoughts and takeaways, though, Jaden. I mean, wow, I was moved by, it is words over. I mean, nowadays it's words over character and what they are. People don't see people for what are they doing, not what they're saying, which is truly beautiful. And the whole people you surround yourself. I know it's a big thought of we're not our circumstances or our surroundings and environments, but that doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't have an influence on us. You can still be a disciplined, motivated person, but once you're stuck in a place with four people that aren't the same, you are going to get weighed down. Don't get dragged down by their drowning because, yeah, you can't save people that don't want to swim. It's one of my favorite sayings. Life is the ocean. You either choose to sink or swim. But yeah, Jaden, thank you so much for your time and your effort. I truly appreciate you coming on the podcast. And for all the viewers, definitely go check out TerraFlow Coaching. Go check out Jaden. I'll link all his socials and his website down in the link below. But definitely help my life if you feel lost or you feel like you need steps or some sort of guidance or someone to relate to, just help you with those problems. Jaden is definitely your man.
Thanks, Amy.